The Big 12 has been one of the best conferences in college basketball for the past decade, and after what might have seemed like a down year for the league, the Big 12 looks like they have a chance to retake the #1 spot. And with the season starting in just a few weeks, we are ranking every team in the Big 12 in today's video. But before we jump into our rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And now, let's jump into it. Arizona State comes in at number 16, and it's shaping up to be another roller coaster under Bobby Hurley. Last season, the Sun Devils finished 15th in the Big 12 and only one game out of last place. And Hurley's squad brings an entirely new group this season, headlined by Mo Odom, who was the nation's assist rate leader last season, and fellow mid-major guards Adante Holloman and Marcus Adams Jr., who shot over 40% from deep last season. Also, they add in Alan Mukaba, who adds some physicality inside after earning all Horizon honors at Oakland, but with only one returning player, defense remains a huge concern after ranking dead last in adjusted efficiency, and offense will flash in moments, yet the chemistry and size issues could again hold Arizona State back, and I expect another finish in the 75 to 90 range nationally. At number 15 is Colorado, which is a program that fought hard under Tad Boyle but finished dead last in the Big 12 play after an 0-13 start to league play. This year's roster looks just as young as it did last year, but there's a little more intrigue, including 7-foot junior Bangkok Dak, who returns after taking a major step forward in his second season with the Buffs, and stretch forward Sebastian Rancic could take a big sophomore leap as one of the team's top scorers. But the biggest addition to this team is UC Riverside transfer Barrington Hargress, who averaged over 20 points per game a year ago and brings instant offense and much needed creation in the backcourt. But youth dominates this roster as well, and Boyle's teams traditionally take time to gel, so defense and shooting consistency will dictate their ceiling, though Boyle's track record says this team will steal a few upsets. Coming in at number 14 is Utah, who is beginning a new era under Alex Jensen after parting ways with Craig Smith. And Jensen is a former NBA assistant and Utes alum and inherits a rebuild with limited power level talent but some intriguing potential. Keanu Dawes is the lone returner and closed last season strong, flashing legitimate scoring touch inside and out, and newcomers Don McHenry and Terrence Brown will handle the backcourt duties after prolific scoring seasons at the mid-major level. There's also transfers Elijah Moore and Ja'Kai Howard, who bring the upside of former top 70 recruits, but the Utes still have a lot of question marks surrounding them, especially with a new coach and mid-major transfers who are unproven at the high major level. And with all of their youth and inexperience, Utah's ceiling will depend on how quickly Jensen's NBA system will take hold. West Virginia comes in at number 13, and Ross Hodge is taking over a complete rebuild in Morgantown. The former North Texas coach replaces Darian DeVries and inherits a roster with 0 returning players. Hodge's defensive identity should define this team, as his track record suggests this group will defend hard and slow games down, and I expect that same defensive backbone here. And with the Mountaineers, they will rely heavily on newcomers Honor Huff and Trayson Eaglestaff offensively, while Chance Moore will function as the glue guy and be absolutely vital to this team's success. But translating that mid-major production to the Big 12 is the big question, and if Hodge's defense holds and his scorers adjust quickly, West Virginia could surprise some people, but on paper, it seems like this will be a year-one grind for Hodge and the Mountaineers. At number 12, UCF once again looks like a total mystery. Johnny Dawkins completely rebuilt the roster again, and while the Knights have talent, the fit remains a big question mark. Mississippi State transfer Riley Kugel headlines the newcomers, hoping a return home helps him rediscover that spark we saw as a freshman, while Devin Cambridge brings veteran experience after an injury-plagued run at Texas Tech. However, Jermichael Stillwell could be the best portal addition for Hawkins, as he is an instant impact big with his relentless motor and rebounding. But the main issue for the Knights is their defense. UCF was near the bottom of the Big 12 on that end last year, and it's hard to see that changing with this lineup. And I expect some big upsets and some ugly losses, but there's just a ton of unpredictability with the Knights this season. And coming in at number 11 is Oklahoma State, who returns just one key player from last season and Robert Jennings II, leaving Steve Lutz to rely heavily on a fresh batch of transfers and freshmen. The backcourt additions of Kanye Clary and Anthony Roy bring a lot of scoring and high usage, but it's unclear if they can coexist and actually make this team better. Isaiah Coleman might have been the best get out of the portal for the Cowboys and offers elite versatility on the offensive and defensive end, but with the lack of returning pieces, the Pokes will lean on this new mix of talent to define their identity, and I think this roster definitely has some potential, but their success hinges on the newcomers clicking quickly, making Oklahoma State another high-variance team this year in the Big 12. TCU comes in at number 10 and enters the season with a solid returning core and some intriguing new pieces. David Punch and Micah Robinson headline the returners, and Punch is a breakout candidate and someone I think could help TCU exceed expectations this season. And the Horned Frogs also brought in transfer guards Brock Harding and Jaden Pierre to help with scoring and playmaking, as the team struggled offensively at times last season, as they finished near the bottom of the Big 12 on that end of the floor, though their defense remained strong. And TCU could be far more competitive this year if Punch takes the next step in his development and the newcomers settle into their roles quickly, and I expect TCU to be right on the bubble of the NCAA tournament come Selection Sunday. At number 9 is Kansas State, who is once again rolling the dice in the transfer portal under Jerome Tang. The Wildcats have retooled around one of the nation's top transfers in PJ Haggerty, who brings All-American upside and should instantly become the offensive focal point for the Wildcats. Tang also added the reigning MAC player and Defensive Player of the Year in Akron's Nate Johnson, giving K-State an elite on-ball defender to pair with Haggerty in the backcourt. Abdi Bashir Jr. and Marcus Johnson round out the group of transfers, and both are high-usage scorers from the mid-majors who will be asked to adjust to Big 12 level of play immediately. But losing Coleman Hawkins definitely hurts the Wildcats' front court versatility, but I think the addition of one of the best players in the portal in PJ Haggerty alone gives K-State enough firepower to at least stay dangerous in league play. Coming in at number 8 is Cincinnati, and the Bearcats enter this season looking to rebound from one of the most disappointing seasons in the country last year. Day Thomas returns as the anchor in the backcourt, and he is a bulldog on the ball, and he also shot 40% from deep down the stretch last year. And the Bearcats added some much needed length and defensive versatility in the offseason with the additions of Mustafa Thiam and Baba Miller, and both transfers can impact the paint and stretch the floor at times, which should help offset the loss of Dylan Mitchell. And this group has the potential to restore Cincy's defensive identity while offering more on the offensive side, but the ceiling will depend on how quickly the transfers can adapt and if the loss of Jizzle James is as big as it seems, but if they are at least competitive in the Big 12, another NCAA tournament bid feels within reach. The Baylor Bears come in at number 7 and enter the season with a clean slate as they are returning no players from last year's roster. And Scott Drew brought in a talented group of players headlined by 6'6" freshman Tunde Yesufu, who is a wing with NBA level size and upside that could quickly emerge as the team's primary scoring option. Michael Rataj and Obi Agman also joined the mix of transfers, bringing versatility and experience to both the front court and the backcourt. And replacing the entire roster is never easy, but Scott Drew's history of program building and elite offensive track record gives Baylor a chance to compete in the Big 12, I think. But Baylor's success will hinge on Yesufu stepping up and being one of the best freshmen in the country, and the transfers finding chemistry together early on. But this team still has a high ceiling, but I expect plenty of growing pains early on, but I still predict that they will make the NCAA tournament. At number 6 is Kansas, who enters this season without Final Four expectations for what seems like the first time in forever. The Jayhawks bring back one key piece from last year's squad in Flory Badunga and bring in the number 1 freshman in the entire country in Darren Peterson. Badunga is a defensive force and an elite rim protector who will anchor the paint and serve as the Jayhawks' primary defensive enforcer, while Peterson is expected to carry the scoring load immediately with All-American-like level production. Kansas must also navigate the losses of the Big Three in Hunter Dickinson, DeJuan Harris, and KJ Adams, leaving the roster thin in both experience and depth, but if Peterson performs like a first-team All-American and Badunga breaks out and makes the sophomore jump that I'm expecting, the role pieces are solid enough around them to help earn Kansas another top 4 or 5 seed in March. And coming in at number 5 is Iowa State, who is returning the most production out of any team in the Big 12, with Taman Lipsey, Milan Makilovic, Joshua Jefferson, and Nate Heisey all back in Ames. But the Cyclones will once again be dominant on the defensive end, and Taman Lipsey will remain the defensive anchor in the backcourt. He is also one of the best guards in the country and will be the primary floor general for Iowa State, with Jefferson and Monkilovic providing versatile scoring and stability in the frontcourt. Nate Heisey also adds some much-needed perimeter shooting, while the Utah Valley transfer Dominic Nelson will offer a dynamic scoring option as a downhill wing. but the Cyclones do have to navigate the losses of both Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert, leaving a clear gap in scoring in the backcourt, but their success hinges on the returners carrying a heavy load, while Nelson and the other transfers figure out how they fit into the rotation fast. The Arizona Wildcats are ranked at number 4 and look poised for another elite season under Tommy Lloyd, as the Wildcats bring back Jaden Bradley, Motias Krivas, Toby Awaka, and Anthony Del Orso, while adding in 5-star freshmen Braden Burries and Koa Pete to the squad. Bradley will take on a larger role at point guard and will have to lean on his quickness to attack downhill in Lloyd's up-tempo system, while Del Orso should provide steady perimeter shooting, and Awaka and Krivas form one of the strongest interior duos in the entire Big 12. But the biggest game changers for the Wildcats will be the freshmen who make Arizona's ceiling even higher, as Braden Burries looks ready to contribute immediately as a lethal scorer, and Koa Pete's power and athleticism could make him a breakout star as well. And with solid returners and the new freshmen that the Wildcats have on the roster this season, this could be the team that takes Tommy Lloyd to the Elite 8 for the first time at Arizona. At number 3 is the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who look primed for another deep run behind the elite duo of JT Toppin and Christian Anderson. And Toppin returns as one of the best players in the entire country and is the reigning Big 12 Player of the Year and a two-way force who dominates both ends of the floor. And Anderson is coming off an impressive freshman year and gives Tech a dynamic shot maker and pick and roll creator to pair perfectly with Toppin's inside presence, and he could be in for a breakout season during his sophomore campaign. However, the Red Raiders are losing one of their key players from last season in Darion Williams, but the Washington State transfer Lawan Watts should step in and as a versatile all-around wing who can facilitate and space the floor, along with some other transfers. And with Grant McCaslin's coaching and the star duo of Toppin and Anderson leading the charge, Texas Tech will once again contend for a Big 12 title. BYU is ranked number 2 and enters the season with sky-high expectations under Kevin Young, and Young and the Cougars had an amazing first year and returned key players like Richie Saunders and Keba Keita, while adding one of the best freshmen in the country in AJ Debansa, alongside transfers Robert Wright III and Kennard Davis. And Saunders was one of the Big 12's most efficient scorers last year, and Keita should anchor the interior with his rebounding and rim protection. But for the Cougars, all eyes are on Debansa, who is the number 1 recruit in the country by some, and is a 6'9" wing with star power written all over him. But I think the addition of Wright, who comes in from Baylor to help run the show, and Kennard Davis could be the X factors for this Cougars team and give them some additional depth. But with the amount of talent on Kevin Young's roster, BYU could be a dark horse Final Four team in my opinion. And coming in as the number 1 team in the Big 12 is the Houston Cougars, and under Kelvin Sampson, dominance has become routine for this program. Houston has finished top 2 in KenPom 4 straight seasons and has gone 34-4 in Big 12 play since joining the league. And this year, the Cougars return one of the best trios in the country in Milos Uzan, JoJo Tugler, and Emmanuel Sharp. Tugler is the reigning Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year and anchors the one of the nation's top defenses, while Sharp provides elite shot making, and Uzan will once again run the point. And the loss of LJ Cryer and Jawan Roberts are big, but Kelvin Sampson and the Cougars reloaded with 5-star freshmen Isaiah Harwell and Chris Sinak Jr. And with Sampson at the helm and the roster he built, Houston is once again the clear favorite to win the Big 12 and contend yet again for a national title. But I also wanted to quickly go over my preseason predictions for the Big 12 awards, and for Player of the Year, I have JT Toppin from Texas Tech, and Toppin dominated the Big 12 last season, and he's back as the clear favorite again. The reigning Player of the Year finished top 5 nationally in KenPom's Player of the Year metric, leading the league in usage, rebounding, and efficiency, and at both ends, Toppin's impact is elite, and I think he's a legitimate National Player of the Year frontrunner. For Freshman of the Year, I have Darren Peterson from Kansas, and the hype is real with Darren Peterson. The nation's top prospect looks every bit like an NBA-ready guard, long, fluid, and polished offensively, and Kansas will need him to play like an All-American from day one, and I think he's capable of doing so. And if Peterson hits his ceiling, KU's a top 4 seed in March. For Newcomer of the Year, I have PJ Haggerty from Kansas State, and PJ Haggerty might be the most impactful transfer in the entire country. The former All-American guard gives Kansas State a true offensive engine. He's a big 6'3" playmaker who can score at all 3 levels, and Haggerty's production and poise will define the Wildcats' ceiling, and he looks every bit like an All-American candidate once again. Defensive Player of the Year, I have Joseph Tugler from Houston, and JoJo Tugler is a defensive monster. The 6'8" forward with a 7'6" wingspan anchored Houston's elite defense last year, ranking 2nd in the Big 12 in block rate. He's relentless on the glass, dominant protecting the the rim and the heartbeat of another top 5 defense, and nobody sets a tone like Tugler on the defensive side of things. And for Coach of the Year, I actually have Kevin Young from BYU. You could go Kelvin Sampson, but Kevin Young made an instant impact at BYU, guiding the Cougars to a Sweet 16 in his first season and installing a top 10 offense. And his NBA-style spacing and shooting-heavy attack turned heads across the Big 12, and with elite recruits on the way, Young's Cougars look ready to stay near the top of the league once again. And that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on my preseason Big 12 rankings. Was there a team that I ranked way too high or way too low? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and make sure and stay tuned for more college basketball content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.